battlefield of the Sacred War, a fierce battle was waged between the great powers of Athens and Sparta. The cause of this feud, control of the sanctuary of Delphi.
But why would there be such a large-scale battle over a sanctuary? Why was it so important? The idea of a sanctuary may not seem relevant in modern society, but in the ancient world it was as vital as your next meal. However, ownership by a specific group just wasn't that simple.
To investigate this issue, we must first travel back to the 6th century BC, to Delphi, where the famous sanctuary of Apollo was situated, centre of the ancient world. The gods were the true owners of the sanctuary, having ownership over anything in a sacred space. However, just because they had divine ownership over a sanctuary does not mean they had a physical control over it.
Oracular consultation was key to the prestige of Delphi, and so the Pythia, being the Delphic oracle by divine right, held most of the power. The sanctuary of Delphi had a pan-Hellenic identity, and so it was connected to all the Greek city-states, and therefore no one had the individual right to rule it. As was often the case in the ancient world, things weren't always as they seemed. For instance, the conflicting forces between Athens and Sparta.
Delphi was at the centre of the famous Sacred Wars, a set of conflicts over the control of the sanctuary that carried on over 200 years. The second of these wars was during the legendary Peloponnesian War. Athens and Sparta both wanted the right of promanteia, the special right to see the oracle first. Such an honour allowed them to justify their various conquests around the ancient world.
Delphi was situated in a mountainous region with very limited accessibility. This meant that it was far more difficult for the Athenian and Spartan armies to surround and retain control of it. As a result of a lack of food resources, a barren landscape, and its isolated location, it was made impossible to inhabit or control the sanctuary.
It wasn't only the physical control of a sanctuary that was important. The surrounding community who attended, donated gifts, and worshipped all played an individual role in controlling the sanctuary's identity and fame.
For instance, the sanctuary of Zeus at Olympia was famous for the victory statues which adorn the sacred space of the sanctuary. These heroic nude representations of Olympic victors were put up by the athlete's home state and were seen by thousands during the prestigious Olympic Games, a way of heightening the reputation of the sanctuary and making those who represented it enviable.
One of the 7 wonders of the ancient world was housed in the temple itself, the giant chrysanthemine statue of Zeus. This colossal sculpture by Phidias stood around 13 metres tall and was famous throughout the Greek world. Many people travelled to the sanctuary simply to be awed by its majesty.
For instance, the prestige of certain figures revealed the authority of Greek citizens. Communities and people were able to control the identity of sanctuary through material possession as opposed to actual physical ownership.
Non-Pan-Hellenic sanctuaries had aspects of control, such as the sanctuary at Didyma, which was largely controlled by the polis of Miletus. Herodotus recounts a story of a Lydian refugee called Pactyes, who led an unsuccessful revolt against the Persians. Kymi were promptly asked by the Persians to hand him over. Citizens had a moral obligation to care for suppliants, but even more so, they didn't want to incite war with the Persians. So what were they to do? What higher figure could they turn to for advice? They went to the oracle at Didyma to ask what they should do while swearing, "We do not dare to betray our suppliant, in spite of our fear of Persian power, until we receive from you clear instructions upon how we should act."
Throughout history, only the gods had true ownership of the sanctuary. but physical ownership was still viciously fought over. Though people could actually own the sanctuary, they could, however, exert aspects of control over it.